Maya, clients don't trust analysts who look like they can't control their appetite. Victoria Langley's voice sliced through the Sterling Investments boardroom like a guillotine. The 50-year-old senior manager, her platinum blonde hair pulled tight, smirked as her words landed. Maya Jackson, 42, a black financial analyst with a razor-sharp mind, gripped her pitch deck, her knuckles whitening. The room, 20 colleagues around a sleek mahogany table, erupted in stifled snickers. Maya's jaw clenched, her teeth grinding so hard her temples pulsed. Victoria leaned forward, her tailored blazer screaming privilege. This isn't personal, Maya. It's about image. Wall Street demands polish. Her red lips curled, daring Maya to respond. Maya's heart pounded, a drumbeat of rage and shame. She'd spent weeks crafting this investment strategy for Sterling's biggest client, a hedge fund worth billions. Her data was bulletproof, projections that could save millions. Yet here she was, reduced to her size, her blackness a silent accusation in Victoria's icy stare. Polish doesn't mean thin, Victoria, Maya shot back, her voice low but steady, cutting through the room's hum. The snickers died. A junior analyst, Greg, shifted uncomfortably, his pen tapping the table. Victoria's eyes narrowed, her smirk faltering for a split second before snapping back. Oh, sweetheart, don't kid yourself. Clients want someone who looks the part, not someone who, she paused, gesturing at Maya's curves, takes up space. The room froze. Maya's chest tightened, her breath shallow. She wanted to scream, to hurl her meticulously prepared charts at Victoria's smug face. Instead, she stood taller, her dark eyes locking onto Victoria's. My work speaks for itself. The client loved my projections. Her voice was a blade, sharp and controlled, but inside her stomach churned. She'd faced these jabs before. Whispers about her weight, coded comments about her fit for leadership, but never this public, this raw. Victoria waved a manicured hand, dismissing Maya's defense. Your projections? Cute, but we need someone who can sell them. Greg's taking the lead on this. Greg, a lanky white analyst with half Maya's experience, flushed, avoiding her gaze. Maya's fingers twitched, itching to rip her pitch deck in half. She'd logged sleepless nights, crunching numbers while raising her teenage daughter alone. This project was her shot at a promotion to director, a dream she'd chased for 15 years. Now it was slipping through her fingers because of Victoria's venom. Don't you have something to say, Maya? Victoria pressed, her voice dripping with mock concern. Or are you just going to stand there? The room's eyes bored into Maya, waiting for her to crack. Her throat burned, but she swallowed the fire. She wouldn't give Victoria the satisfaction of seeing her break. You're making a mistake, Maya said, her tone cold, each word deliberate. This firm will regret underestimating me. Victoria laughed, a sharp grating sound. Regret? Oh, Maya, stick to crunching numbers in the back. It suits you better. Colleagues exchanged glances, some smirking, others uneasy. Maya gathered her notes, her hands steady despite the storm inside. She walked toward the door, her heels clicking like a countdown to war. As she passed Greg, he muttered, Sorry, Maya. But she didn't look back. Her dignity was her armor, but it was cracking. Outside the boardroom, Maya leaned against the wall, her breath ragged. Her phone buzzed, a text from her daughter, Aaliyah. You got this, Mom? The words stung more than they soothed. She'd promised Aaliyah a better future, but Victoria's words echoed. Takes up space. Maya's fist clenched, her nails biting into her palms. She didn't know that 2 floors above, her husband Ethan Carter, a billionaire tech mogul, was stepping off the executive elevator, his new CEO badge gleaming, ready to turn Sterling Investments upside down. Maya Jackson's heels stabbed the polished floor as she strode from the boardroom, Victoria Langley's venomous words, stick to crunching numbers in the back, burning in her ears. Her chest heaved, each breath a battle to cage the fury clawing at her ribs. The hallway's fluorescent glare stung her eyes, but she refused to let tears spill. Not here, not now. Colleagues' whispers trailed her like vultures circling a wounded animal. Too much drama, one muttered. She should have known better, hissed another. Maya's nails dug into her palms, the pain grounding her as she reached her corner desk. a cramped island in Sterling Investments' sea of glass and steel. She dropped her pitch deck onto the desk, its pages crumpling under her trembling hands. The report, weeks of late nights, missed dinners with her daughter Aaliyah, endless revisions to perfect every chart, was now a cruel reminder of her stolen chance. Victoria's smirk flashed in her mind, that smug curl of lips daring her to break. Maya's jaw locked, her teeth grinding until her head throbbed. She wouldn't give them the show they wanted, not the angry black woman stereotype they expected. "Maya, you okay?" Jamal Brooks, a 35-year-old black analyst, leaned over from the next cubicle, his voice low, eyes sharp with concern. He'd seen her take hits before, subtle jabs in meetings, overlooked promotions, but this was a public execution. Maya forced a nod, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm fine, Jamal. Just need a minute." Her voice was steady, a steel thread woven through the chaos inside. She sat, straightening her blazer, its deep burgundy a defiant splash against the office's sterile grays. Across the open-plan office, Victoria's laughter rang out, sharp as shattered glass. She perched on Greg's desk, the new project lead, tossing her blonde hair as she recounted the meeting's highlights. "She thought she'd run the show," Victoria said, loud enough for Maya to hear. Greg chuckled nervously, his eyes flicking toward Maya's desk. The dominoes kept falling. Colleagues joined the gossip, their voices a low hum of judgment. Maya's fingers twitched, itching to slam her fist on the desk, but she inhaled deeply, her breath a slow burn. "I'm not done," Maya whispered to herself, her voice barely audible but fierce. She opened her laptop, her fingers flying across the keys as she drafted an email to the client, attaching her full pitch deck. "You'll see my work," she muttered, her eyes blazing. The email was professional, polished, but laced with a quiet challenge. "I trust you'll find the strategy compelling. I'm available for any questions." She hit send, her heart pounding like a war drum. Standing, Maya gathered her belongings. Laptop, notes, a photo of Aaliyah grinning at a science fair. Her colleagues' eyes followed her, some curious, others smug. She paused at the office door, turning back to face the room. Victoria's gaze met hers, expectant, waiting for weakness. Maya's voice cut through the silence, clear and cold. "This firm will choke on its own biases one day. I'll make sure of it." The words landed like a grenade, silencing the whispers. Victoria's smirk froze, her eyes narrowing, but Maya didn't wait for a retort. She walked out, her head high, her steps deliberate, each one a promise of retribution. In the elevator, Maya's shoulders sagged, the weight of the day crashing down. Her phone buzzed. Aaliyah's text. "Proud of you, Mom." The words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the sting of Victoria's cruelty. Maya's fists clenched, her nails biting deeper into her skin. She didn't know that 2 floors above, Ethan Carter, her billionaire husband, was settling into his new CEO office, his eyes scanning personnel files, his jaw tightening as he read Maya's name. Victoria Langley's manicured nails clicked against her glass desk as she leaned back, savoring her boardroom takedown of Maya Jackson. The Sterling Investments office hummed with the usual Wall Street buzz, phones ringing, analysts shouting over trades, but her smirk held steady, a predator basking in victory. Maya's parting shot, "This firm will choke on its own biases," echoed in her mind, but she shoved it aside. "She's out of her league," Victoria muttered, flipping open her laptop to check emails. Her confidence was ironclad, forged from years of clawing to the top, sidelining anyone who didn't fit her polished mold. Then her phone pinged, a sharp chime cutting through her smug haze. An email from Sterling's biggest client, hedge fund titan Marcus Reed, flashed on the screen. "Maya's pitch deck is visionary, best analysis we've seen in years. Why isn't she leading this?" Victoria's smirk froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Her pulse quickened, a jagged spike of doubt piercing her armor. She reread the message, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Visionary," she hissed, her voice a low snarl. The word burned, a slap to her carefully curated narrative that Maya was unfit. Too heavy, too black for Wall Street's spotlight. She stood, her heels stabbing the floor, and paced to the window overlooking Manhattan's skyline. Her reflection, sharp blazer, flawless blonde hair, stared back, but her hands trembled slightly. Impossible, she snapped, dismissing the email as a fluke. Maya's projections were solid, sure, but Greg, her handpicked replacement, was the right fit. White, lean, unthreatening. Yet Marcus's words gnawed at her, a splinter under her skin. Had she miscalculated? Her jaw clenched, teeth grinding as she fought the creeping unease. Victoria stormed back to her desk, her movements sharp, and opened Maya's pitch deck, forwarded by the client. The charts were meticulous, the projections razor-sharp, predicting market shifts with chilling accuracy. Each slide screamed competence, a silent rebuke to her mockery. "Damn it," she muttered, slamming the laptop shut. Her fingers drummed the desk, a nervous rhythm betraying her facade. She'd expected Maya to crumble, not to impress a client worth billions. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if Maya's defiance lingered like a ghost. Then another ping. An email in Maya's sent folder, flagged for review, caught her eye. It was addressed to an unknown recipient, no name, just a cryptic handle. Audit Watchdog. The subject, Sterling Q4, 2023 discrepancies. Victoria's breath hitched, her eyes narrowing as she clicked open the message. It was brief, a single line. Found irregularities in the Baxter account. Check attached. Attached was a partial audit report, numbers circled in red, hinting at missing funds in a deal Victoria had signed off on. Her heart thudded, a cold sweat prickling her neck. "What the hell is this?" she whispered, her voice shaking. She glanced around, half expecting Maya to reappear, accusing her. The office churned on, oblivious, analysts typing, phones buzzing. But Victoria's world tilted. Had Maya known something? Was this a trap? Her fingers hovered over the delete key, but she stopped, her mind racing. Deleting it would raise flags. Ignoring it could be worse. She leaned back, her chair creaking under her rigid frame, and forced a slow breath. She's nobody, she told herself, but the words tasted hollow. Maya's work was undeniable, and this audit email was a ticking bomb she couldn't unsee. Across the hall, junior analysts whispered about Maya's exit, her words. "This firm will choke," spreading like wildfire. Victoria's ears burned, catching fragments of their chatter. "She's got guts," one said. "Client loved her," another added. Victoria's fist clenched, nails biting into her palms. She'd won the battle, but a crack had formed in her control, and Maya's shadow loomed larger than she'd expected. "You underestimated her, Victoria, and now you're scrambling." Richard Hayes's voice barked through the phone, sharp enough to make Victoria Langley's hand jerk. She stood in her corner office at Sterling Investments, her polished nails digging into her palm, the sting barely dulling the fire in her chest. Marcus Reed's email, calling Maya Jackson's pitch visionary, burned in her mind, and that cryptic audit email from Maya's sent folder twisted her gut like a knife. She'd mocked Maya's weight in front of the entire team, stripped her of a career-defining project, and now the client's praise threatened to expose her mistake. "Fix this before it bites us," Richard snapped, hanging up. Victoria's heels stabbed the floor as she stormed out, her blazer tight against her rigid frame. She needed to find Maya, to spin this before it spiraled. Her pulse hammered, a relentless drumbeat of panic and pride. She'd built her career on control, sidelining threats like Maya, whose brilliance and blackness didn't fit her Wall Street mold. But Marcus's words, "Why isn't she leading this?" echoed like a verdict. She hissed through clenched teeth, her jaw aching. "She's not ruining me," she muttered, shoving past a junior analyst who flinched at her glare. The elevator ride to the lobby felt like a descent into enemy territory. Victoria's phone buzzed. Another email from Marcus. "Expect Maya at our next meeting." Her fingers tightened around the device, nearly cracking the screen. She needed Maya to back off, to accept the reassignment quietly. Her mind raced, crafting excuses. A misunderstanding, a team decision, anything to save face. She stepped into the Manhattan dusk, her eyes scanning for Maya. A colleague had mentioned seeing her at a coffee shop nearby, mentoring some intern. Typical Maya, playing the saint while Victoria burned. At Brood Awakening, a cramped cafe 2 blocks from Sterling, Victoria spotted Maya through the window. Maya sat with a young black intern, her burgundy blazer a bold contrast to the cafe's muted tones. She was gesturing at a laptop, her voice calm but firm, guiding the intern through a spreadsheet. Victoria's stomach twisted. Guilt, sharp and unwelcome, clawed at her. Maya wasn't broken, she was thriving, her resilience a silent rebuke to Victoria's cruelty. "Damn her," Victoria whispered, her breath fogging the glass. She pushed through the door, the bell jangling like a warning shot. "Maya," Victoria called, her voice slicing through the cafe's hum. Heads turned, but Maya's eyes stayed on the intern, unfazed. "We need to talk." Maya's hand paused mid-gesture, her fingers curling slightly. She dismissed the intern with a nod, her gaze finally meeting Victoria's, cold, unyielding, like steel. "What's there to talk about?" Maya asked, her tone a blade, cutting through Victoria's bravado. Victoria's lips twitched, fighting a scowl. "The client, they appreciated your work." The words tasted like ash, each one a blow to her pride. "Appreciated?" Maya's laugh was sharp, a whip crack. "You mean the pitch you stole from me?" The cafe fell silent, customers glancing over. Victoria's face flushed, her nails biting deeper into her palms. "Don't make a scene," she hissed, stepping closer. "I'm here to fix this." Maya leaned back, arms crossed, her eyes narrowing. "Fix what? My weight? My blackness? Or your mistake?" The words landed like punches, each one fueling Victoria's panic. She'd expected tears, not defiance. "I misjudged," Victoria said, her voice low, forced. "You can stay on the project, limited role." Maya's jaw tightened, her teeth grinding audibly. "Limited," she spat. "I built that strategy from scratch. You don't get to toss me scraps." The dominoes fell fast. Victoria's offer, meant to placate, only stoked Maya's fire. Customers whispered, their stares pinning Victoria like a specimen. She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. "Take it, or you're done at Sterling." Maya stood, her chair scraping the floor, her height commanding the space. "You're the one who's done underestimating me," she said, her words a vow, echoing her boardroom exit. Victoria's heart pounded, her control slipping like sand. She'd come to bury her mistake, but Maya's strength unearthed her fragility. As Maya gathered her things, Victoria's eyes caught a glimpse of her laptop screen, an open email to Audit Watchdog, the same cryptic handle from before, now with a new line. "Baxter account discrepancies confirmed." Her breath hitched, a cold sweat slicking her neck. What did Maya know? Was she digging into the firm's secrets? Victoria stumbled out of the cafe, her heels unsteady, her mind a storm of doubt and fear. Maya's defiance, the client's praise, and that damned audit email were unraveling her carefully built empire. She didn't see the man watching from a sleek black car across the street. Ethan Carter, Maya's billionaire husband, his jaw set as he dialed his assistant to prepare for his first day as Sterling's CEO. "You don't get to define me, Victoria." Maya Jackson's voice echoed in her mind as she slammed her apartment door shut, the sound a defiant crack against the day's wounds. Her Brooklyn loft, a haven of warm wood and family photos, pulsed with the chaos of her teenage daughter Aaliyah's music blaring from the kitchen. Maya's chest heaved, her fists clenching until her nails bit into her palms, the sting grounding her fury. Victoria's cafe ambush, offering scraps to fix her public mockery, still burned, but Maya refused to break. She kicked off her heels, her bare feet gripping the floor, and exhaled a sharp breath, her jaw tight with resolve. Aaliyah, 16, poked her head out, her braids swinging. "Mom, you okay? You look like you're gonna punch a wall." Her brown eyes, sharp like Maya's, caught every flicker of her mother's pain. Maya forced a smile, her lips trembling but firm. "Just a long day, baby. How's your math project?" She moved to the kitchen, her burgundy blazer now creased, a badge of her battle at Sterling Investments. Aaliyah slid a textbook across the counter, her voice bright. "Killing it. Thanks to you. Want to check my equations?" Maya's heart softened, her daughter's trust a balm to Victoria's venom. She sat, her fingers tracing the textbook's edges. guiding Aaliyah through a quadratic equation. Her voice was steady, each word a brick rebuilding her confidence. "Focus on the roots, not the noise," she said, her eyes flashing with purpose. Teaching Aaliyah was her anchor, a reminder of why she fought, why she endured Wall Street's knives. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jamal Brooks, her colleague. "Clients raving about your pitch. You're unstoppable." Maya's lips curled, a spark of defiance igniting. She wasn't just surviving, she was thriving, her brilliance undeniable, despite Victoria's attempt to bury it. Across the city, Ethan Carter, Maya's 45-year-old billionaire husband, sat in his temporary office atop Sterling Investments. His tie loosened, his dark eyes scanning Maya's personnel file. His tech empire had acquired Sterling days ago, and his new CEO badge gleamed on his desk, a secret he'd kept from Maya to surprise her. Her file screamed injustice. Stellar performance reviews, market-beating projections, yet unfit for leadership scrawled in Victoria's notes. Ethan's jaw clenched, his teeth grinding until his temples pulsed. "They mocked my wife," he muttered, his voice a low growl, fury coiling in his chest. He'd built a fortune on seeing what others ignored, and now he saw a pattern of discrimination that made his blood boil. Ethan dialed his assistant, his words sharp. "Get me every evaluation from the past 2 years, now." His fingers drummed the desk, each tap a countdown to war. He pictured Maya's face after her boardroom humiliation, her dignity under fire. He'd planned to celebrate his CEO role with her tonight, but her pain, texted earlier in a clipped, rough day, changed everything. He wouldn't just lead Sterling, he'd gut its toxic core. His phone pinged, a calendar alert. "Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. His lips twitched, a predator's smile forming. Victoria and her allies had no idea what was coming. Back in Brooklyn, Maya tucked Aaliyah's textbook away, her hands steady despite the storm inside. She pulled out her laptop, opening the audit watchdog email from earlier, the one Victoria had glimpsed in the cafe. The cryptic line, "Baxter account discrepancies confirmed," stared back, its attached report showing altered numbers in a deal Victoria had overseen. Maya's pulse quickened, her fingers hovering over the keys. "What were you hiding?" she whispered, her eyes narrowing. She hadn't sent the email, but someone had, using her account. Her mind raced. Friend or foe? The question gnawed at her, a puzzle she couldn't ignore. Aaliyah called from her room. "Mom, dinner's ready." Maya closed the laptop, her resolve hardening. She wouldn't let Victoria's cruelty, or this mystery, define her. She stood, her shoulders squared, ready to fight another day. "I misjudged you, Maya, but don't push it." Victoria Langley's voice cracked like a whip, slicing through the hum of the Sterling Investments lobby. Her heels clicked furiously as she cornered Maya near the reception desk, her blonde hair taut in a bun, her eyes blazing with a mix of guilt and defiance. Maya Jackson, 42, stood her ground, her burgundy blazer creased from a sleepless night wrestling with Victoria's mockery. Too heavy for Wall Street, and the cryptic note from her doorstep. Check Baxter's 2023 transfers. Her pulse hammered, her jaw locked tight, teeth grinding as she faced her tormentor. Victoria's manicured hand waved dismissively, her words sharp. "The client loves your pitch. Fine. You can stay on the project." Her lips twisted, forcing the concession through clenched teeth. Maya's eyes narrowed, her fingers curling into fists, nails biting into her palms. The lobby's bustle, analysts rushing, phones ringing, faded as her voice cut back, cold and precise. "Stay on. I built that strategy. You stole it." The accusation landed like a blade, and a passing intern flinched, sensing the storm brewing. "Don't be dramatic," Victoria snapped, stepping closer, her perfume sharp and cloying. "I'm offering you a chance to save face. Take it." Her voice was a hiss, her control fraying as Maya's defiance mirrored their cafe clash. Maya's chest tightened, her breath a slow burn. She'd spent years swallowing slights, Victoria's jabs at her weight, her blackness. But this was a line crossed. "Save face?" Maya's laugh was a razor, slicing through the air. "You humiliated me in front of the team. You don't get to play savior now." Victoria's face flushed, her nails digging into her arms, leaving red crescents. You're nobody without my approval. She spat, her voice low, venomous. I'm giving you a lifeline. The lobby's eyes darted toward them, whispers spreading like wildfire. Maya stepped forward, her height commanding, her voice a low growl. My work is my lifeline. You want peace? Reinstate my project lead. Publicly. The demand was a gauntlet, thrown with the weight of her boardroom vow. This firm will choke on its biases. Victoria's smirk faltered, her eyes flickering with panic. Publicly? You're delusional. But her hands trembled, betraying her. The client's praise, visionary, and that audit email to audit watchdog gnawed at her, a splinter in her pride. She'd come to bury her mistake, not dig her own grave. Fine, she hissed, her voice barely audible. Lead the project, but keep your mouth shut. Maya's lips curled, a spark of triumph flashing in her eyes. And an apology, in the next team meeting. The dominoes fell. Victoria's forced nod, her jaw twitching with suppressed rage, sparked a ripple of gas from nearby analysts. Maya's conditions weren't just defiance. They were a declaration of war. You'll regret pushing me, Victoria muttered, her voice a venomous promise. She turned to leave, her heels clicking like a countdown, but paused as Maya's bag slipped, spilling papers onto the floor. A single sheet caught Victoria's eye. A printed audit report, the same Baxter account discrepancies from the mysterious email, now with handwritten notes. Funds rerouted, Q4 2023, RH. Maya snatched the paper, her heart slamming against her ribs. RH had to be Richard Hayes, Victoria's boardroom ally. Her fingers trembled as she stuffed the report back, her eyes locking onto Victoria's. What's this? Victoria demanded, her voice sharp. But Maya's silence was a wall, unyielding. The report wasn't hers, she hadn't written those notes. But someone had planted it, deepening the mystery from the doorstep note. You're playing a dangerous game, Victoria warned, her eyes narrowing to slits. Maya's pulse raced, but her voice stayed steady. I'm not playing. I'm winning. Victoria stormed off, her composure shattered, the lobby's whispers chasing her. Maya clutched the audit report, her mind racing. Someone was watching, feeding her clues about a scandal bigger than her humiliation. Her resolve hardened, her nails biting deeper into her palms. She didn't know that upstairs, Ethan Carter, her billionaire husband, was reviewing the same Baxter account, his CEO badge gleaming, his fury building as he connected the dots to Maya's pain. You're a liability, Victoria, and I don't tolerate weak links. Richard Hayes' voice thundered through his corner office, his fist slamming the desk, sending a pen skittering across the polished wood. Victoria Langley, her blonde bun fraying, stood rigid, her nails digging into her arms, leaving red welts. Her forced apology to Maya Jackson in the lobby, reinstating her project lead, had backfired, and now Richard, a 55-year-old board member with a shark's grin, bared his teeth. His gray suit screamed power, but his eyes burned with something darker. Panic over the audit report Maya had clutched, marked with his initials, RH. You groveled to her, Richard spat, cutting off Victoria's attempt to speak. Her lips parted, but he barreled on. That black analyst you mocked is sniffing around the Baxter account. You think that's a coincidence? His voice was a blade slicing through the air of Sterling Investments' executive floor. Victoria's pulse hammered, her jaw clenching so hard her teeth ached. She'd seen the audit report in Maya's bag, those damning numbers tied to a deal she'd signed off on. And now Richard's rage confirmed her worst fear. He was hiding something massive. I fixed it, Victoria hissed, her voice low, venomous. She's back on the project. She'll stay quiet. Her hands trembled, betraying her bravado. Richard's laugh was a guttural snarl, his chair creaking as he leaned forward. Quiet? She's got evidence. That audit email you ignored. It's a landmine. He stood towering over her, his fingers gripping a folder marked Baxter Q4 2023. Victoria's stomach churned, a cold sweat slicking her neck. The anonymous text Maya received, Baxter's missing millions, flashed in her mind, a puzzle piece she couldn't place. You signed off on that deal, she shot back, her voice shaking but defiant. If it's dirty, that's on you. Richard's eyes narrowed to slits, his fist tightening around the folder. Watch your tone, he growled. I made this firm billions. You? You're a glorified gatekeeper who can't control one analyst. The words stung, a whip crack to Victoria's pride. Her nails bit deeper, blood pricking her skin. She'd built her career on control, but Richard's hostility exposed a truth. He'd manipulated the Baxter deal, and Maya's digging threatened to unearth it. He paced, his polished shoes thudding like a war drum. "She's a problem," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Her and her nosy friend Jamal Brooks. They're asking questions about transfers I approved." Victoria's breath hitched, her mind racing. Jamal, the sideline black analyst, had been seen with Maya, poring over spreadsheets. The dominoes fell fast. Maya's defiance in the lobby, the audit report's RH note, and now Richard's fury pointed to a conspiracy bigger than office politics. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice a hiss. Richard stopped, his grin cold, predatory. "I protected our profits, diverted funds to cover losses. Nobody was supposed to notice." His confession hit like a punch, Victoria's knees buckling slightly. Embezzlement. Millions siphoned from the Baxter account, masked by fake reports. Maya's audit email wasn't random. It was a whistleblower's warning, and Richard knew it. "If she talks," he said, his voice a low growl, "I'll make sure she's unemployable. Her kid, too." Victoria's heart pounded, her fingers twitching toward her phone. She wanted to run, to distance herself from Richard's scheme, but his glare pinned her. "You're in this now," he said, tossing the folder onto the desk, its pages spilling to reveal doctored numbers. "Keep her in line, or you're done." The threat was a noose tightening around her neck. She nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line, her mind a storm of fear and calculation. Maya's resilience, her refusal to bow, had cracked Victoria's armor. But Richard's ruthlessness was a new beast, one she couldn't outmaneuver. As she stumbled toward the door, her heels unsteady, analysts outside whispered about Maya's reinstated role, their voices a buzzing hive. Richard's shadow loomed, his scheme a ticking bomb. Unseen 2 floors below, Maya was opening her laptop, the anonymous text, "Dig deeper," burning in her mind, pulling her toward a truth that could destroy them all. "You're poking a hornet's nest, Maya." Jamal Brooks's voice hissed, sharp and urgent, as he leaned over Maya Jackson's laptop in a dimly lit Sterling Investments break room. His fingers stabbed the keyboard, pulling up a hidden transaction from the Baxter account, flagged in the audit report marked RH. Maya, 42, her burgundy blazer creased from a sleepless night, gripped the table, her nails biting into the wood, her pulse hammering like a war drum. The anonymous text, "Baxter's missing millions. Dig deeper," burned in her mind, its warning now a beacon. Richard Hayes's confession to Victoria, overheard in fragments, had turned her humiliation into a mission. Expose the rot at Sterling's core. "Hornet's nest?" Maya's eyes flashed, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. "They mocked me, Jamal. Stripped my work because of my weight, my skin. I'm not stopping." Her voice was a blade cutting through the hum of vending machines. Jamal, 35, a sideline black analyst with a knack for numbers, nodded, his fists curling. He'd been passed over for promotions, his talent buried under the same biases that targeted Maya. The audit report, with its circled discrepancies, lay between them like a loaded gun, $10 million rerouted from the Baxter account in Q4 2023, signed by Richard Hayes. She opened the report, her fingers trembling but precise, scanning lines of altered figures. "These transfers don't add up," she said, her voice low, fierce. "Dummy accounts, offshore shells." Jamal's eyes widened, his chair scraping as he leaned closer. "He's laundering it," he whispered, his breath sharp, "hiding losses to boost Sterling's stock." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs, the weight of their discovery crushing. Richard wasn't just a bully. He was a thief, and her accidental glimpse of his RH note had made her a target. They worked fast, their movements syncopated, like soldiers in a war room. Jamal hacked into Sterling's encrypted financial database, his fingers flying, sweat beading on his brow. "Got a trail," he said, pointing to a transfer to a Cayman account, labeled consulting fees. Maya's lips curled, a spark of triumph igniting. Consulting? For who? Ghosts. Her sarcasm masked the fear clawing her gut. The anonymous audit watchdog email, the doorstep note, the text. Someone was feeding them clues, but why? Her fingers froze as a new file popped up. A deleted memo from Richard to an unknown board member ordering, "Bury the Baxter audit. Jackson's too close." Too close! Maya's voice cracked, her nails digging deeper into the table. They knew I'd find this. Jamal's eyes darted to the door, his shoulders tensing. We're in deep, Maya. Richard's not playing. The dominoes fell. The audit email, GM6. The note under her door, GM5. And now this memo confirmed a conspiracy. Maya's mind raced, picturing her daughter Alia's face. If Richard could threaten her career, what else could he do? Her phone buzzed, another anonymous text. Server room. Backup drive. Now. Her breath hitched, her eyes locking with Jamal's. "We go," she said, her voice steel, shoving the laptop shut. They slipped out, dodging analysts in the hallway, their steps quick, silent. The server room, tucked in Sterling's basement, was a maze of humming machines and flickering lights. Maya's heart pounded, her palms slick as she followed Jamal to a locked cabinet. He jimmied it open, his hands steady despite his shaking breath. Inside, a dusty USB drive labeled Baxter Backup gleamed like a trophy. Maya snatched it, her fingers trembling, her mind screaming, "This could end us." As they plugged the drive into a terminal, files loaded, encrypted ledgers, forged signatures, emails between Richard and an offshore contact. "He siphoned millions," Jamal said, his voice a low growl, "covered it with fake reports." Maya's eyes burned, her fists clenching until her knuckles whitened. "And blamed me to keep me quiet," she spat, her rage a wildfire. The ledgers showed Richard's scheme, diverting client funds to prop up Sterling's failing investments, all while sidelining analysts like her and Jamal to avoid scrutiny. A noise, footsteps, echoed outside. Maya's head snapped up, her pulse spiking. "Someone's coming," she whispered, yanking the drive free. Jamal stuffed it in his pocket, his eyes wide with panic. They ducked behind a server rack, their breaths shallow as a security guard's flashlight swept the room. Maya's nails bit into her palms, the pain grounding her fear. The guard left, but the close call seared her resolve. "We're not done," she said, her voice a vow, echoing her boardroom defiance. Upstairs, Ethan Carter, Maya's billionaire husband, sat in his CEO office, his eyes narrowing at the same Baxter files. His tie hung loose, his jaw tight as he pieced together Richard's betrayal. He didn't know Maya was steps ahead, risking everything to expose the truth he was only beginning to uncover. "He's been stealing for years." Maya Jackson's voice cracked like a gunshot, her fingers trembling as she gripped the USB drive. Its encrypted files spilling secrets across her laptop screen. In a cramped Wall Street diner, far from Sterling Investments' prying eyes, Maya and Jamal Brooks hunched over their booth, the Baxter account ledgers glowing on the display. Her pulse pounded, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. The anonymous text, "Server room, backup drive," from hours ago had led them here, and now the truth hit like a sledgehammer. Richard Hayes, Sterling's boardroom shark, had siphoned $15 million from client funds to cover his gambling debts. Jamal's eyes widened, his knuckles whitening as he clutched the table. "This isn't just fraud," he hissed, his voice a low growl. "He framed you to keep it buried." The ledgers showed a web of fake transactions, offshore accounts, forged signatures, all tied to Richard's initials, RH. Maya's chest heaved, her nails biting into her palms, the pain grounding her fury. She'd been mocked for her weight, sidelined for her blackness, but this was worse. Richard had used her as a scapegoat, planting audit clues in her email to make her look complicit. "He wanted me gone," she spat, her voice a blade. "Thought I'd never dig this deep." The diner's clatter, plates clinking, waiters shouting, faded as Maya scrolled through an email chain from the USB drive. One message dated a year ago froze her blood. Richard to an unnamed board member. "Jackson's too smart. Reassign her or she'll spot the Baxter hole." Her heart slammed against her ribs, her breath shallow. "They targeted me from the start," she said, her eyes burning with rage. Jamal leaned closer, his finger stabbing the screen. Look at this. He paid off an auditor to fake the Q4 reports. The evidence was ironclad. Richard's scheme wasn't a one-off. It was a years-long heist, propping up Sterling's stock while he gambled millions away. Maya's mind raced, connecting the dots. The audit watchdog email, the doorstep note, the anonymous text. Someone inside Sterling was leaking his crimes, protecting her. "Who's helping us?" she whispered, her voice trembling but fierce. Jamal shook his head, his jaw tight. "Doesn't matter. This ends him." He pulled up a bank statement from the drive, showing transfers to a Vegas casino, directly linked to Richard's account. Maya's lips curled, a spark of triumph cutting through her fear. "He's done," she said, her voice steel, echoing her vow. "This firm will choke." But the weight of the truth crushed her. Exposing Richard meant risking everything, her career, her daughter Aaliyah's future. Her hands shook as she copied the files to her phone, her resolve hardening. "We take this to the board," she said, her eyes locking with Jamal's. He nodded, his fist clenching. "They'll bury us if we don't move fast." The dominoes fell. The USB drive's files confirmed the audit clues from the lobby confrontation, the doorstep notes warning, and Richard's threat to frame her. Each revelation tightened the noose around his neck. As they packed up, a waitress dropped a napkin on their table, her eyes darting away. Scrawled in black ink, "Board knows, watch your back." Maya's pulse spiked, her fingers crushing the napkin. "Someone's one step ahead," she said, her voice a low growl. Jamal's eyes darted to the door, his shoulders tensing. "We're not alone in this." The diner felt smaller, the air heavier, as if Richard's shadow loomed over them. Maya stuffed the USB drive in her pocket, her nails biting deeper, her heart a war drum. She didn't know that upstairs at Sterling, Ethan Carter, her billionaire husband, was cross-referencing the same Baxter files, his CEO badge gleaming, his fury ready to ignite. "You're digging your own grave, Jackson," Richard Hayes's voice roared, a venomous snarl that echoed through Sterling Investments' deserted file room. His gray suit loomed in the dim light, his fist clenched around a USB drive, Maya's evidence of his $15 million Baxter account theft. Maya Jackson, 42, stood pinned against a steel cabinet, her pulse hammering like a jackhammer, her nails biting into her palms until blood pricked her skin. The anonymous audit watchdog email and the diner's napkin note had led her here, alone after hours, chasing a final ledger to nail Richard's embezzlement. Now his towering frame blocked the door, his eyes glinting with menace. "You thought you could expose me," Richard snapped, stepping closer, his breath hot and sour. Maya's jaw locked, her teeth grinding so hard her temples throbbed. She'd slipped into the file room to cross-check the USB's data, but Richard had been waiting, tipped off by a bored ally who'd seen her with Jamal Brooks. "I didn't think," she shot back, her voice a blade, sharp despite the fear coiling in her gut. "I know you stole millions. The evidence is out." Her words were a gamble, her phone already texting Jamal, "File room now." Richard's laugh was a guttural bark, his hands slamming the cabinet beside her head, the clang ringing in her ears. "Out? You're bluffing," he growled, waving the USB like a trophy. "This ends tonight." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs, her breath shallow as she dodged his grab, her shoulder scraping the cabinet's edge. The room felt like a cage, its walls closing in, but she refused to break. "You mocked me, sidelined me for my weight, my skin," she hissed, her eyes blazing. "But this is your end." He lunged, his fingers snatching her wrist, twisting until pain shot up her arm. "You're nothing," he spat, his voice a venomous hiss. "A nobody who got too nosy." Maya's free hand clawed at a shelf, knocking folders to the floor, papers scattering like shrapnel. Her nails dug into his hand, drawing blood, and he cursed, loosening his grip. She broke free, stumbling back, her chest heaving. "The board will see those files," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "You're done, Richard." His eyes narrowed to slits, his fist smashing a filing cabinet, denting the metal. "You and your kid will pay," he snarled, his threat slicing through her resolve. Aaliyah's face flashed in her mind, her daughter's smile, her future. And Maya's rage ignited, a wildfire swallowing her fear. "Threaten my daughter again," she said, her voice low, lethal, "and I'll bury you myself." The words echoed her boardroom vow. This firm will choke. Now a promise of war. Richard charged, shoving her against the wall, her head cracking against concrete. Pain exploded, stars bursting in her vision. But she kicked out, her heel slamming his shin. He staggered, cursing, and she scrambled for the door, her fingers slipping on the handle. The lock clicked, jammed. Her heart lurched, her breath a ragged gasp. "You can't run," Richard said, his voice cold, predatory, as he grabbed a heavy binder, raising it like a club. Maya's eyes darted, spotting a fire alarm on the wall. Her hand shot out, yanking the lever, and a piercing wail filled the room, red lights flashing. The dominoes fell. Richard's attack, Maya's defiance, the alarm's scream. Footsteps thundered outside, security drawn by the noise. Richard froze, the binder dropping, his face paling as he realized his trap had backfired. Maya's knees buckled, but she stood tall, her eyes locked on his, her voice cutting through the siren. "You're finished," she said, each word a nail in his coffin. The door burst open, security guards rushing in, their radios crackling. Maya clutched her phone, Jamal's reply glowing. "On my way." Unseen across town, Ethan Carter, Maya's billionaire husband, sat in his CEO office, his fingers gripping a report that mirrored Maya's evidence. His jaw clenched, his fury a coiled spring as he dialed his assistant. "Get me Richard Hayes, now." He didn't know Maya was fighting for her life, but his wrath was already aimed at Sterling's corrupt heart. "You're done, Richard, but who's covering for you?" Maya Jackson's voice sliced through the chaos of Sterling Investments' server room, her hands trembling as she clutched the USB drive that nearly cost her life. Her head throbbed from Richard Hayes' attack, the bruise on her temple pulsing, but her eyes burned with defiance. Jamal Brooks, his shirt damp with sweat, stood beside her, his fingers flying across a terminal keyboard, decrypting the hidden email he'd found, a message naming Richard's boardroom accomplice. The fire alarm's wail from their file room escape still echoed in Maya's ears, her pulse hammering like a war drum as security dragged Richard away upstairs. "We've got minutes before they lock this place down," Jamal hissed, his jaw clenched, his knuckles whitening on the mouse. The email, buried in the USB's encrypted files, was from Audit Watchdog to Richard, dated 6 months ago. "Baxter funds secured. Susan Grant will bury the audit." Susan, a 48-year-old board member, had signed off on Maya's demotion, her signature on every Dr. Baxter report. Maya's nails dug into her palms, blood pricking her skin. "Susan," she spat, her voice ablade. "She mocked my weight, backed Victoria's lies, and hid Richard's theft." The server room's hum was a ticking clock, each beep tightening the noose around Maya's chest. Her confrontation with Richard, his fist, his threats against her daughter Aaliyah, fueled her rage. "We need proof Susan knew," she said, her voice low, lethal. Jamal's eyes flicked to the screen, a new file loading, a recorded call between Richard and Susan, time-stamped last year. "Got it," he said, his voice a growl as he hit play. Susan's voice crackled through. "Reassign Jackson. She's too sharp for her good." Richard's reply, "Divert the funds. I'll handle the fallout." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs, her breath shallow. "They planned this together," she said, her teeth grinding until her jaw ached. The call confirmed Susan's complicity in the $15 million Baxter heist, using Maya as a scapegoat to cover their tracks. Jamal yanked the USB, his hands shaking but precise. "This'll bury them both," he said, stuffing it into his pocket. But the screen flashed. A security alert. "Server access restricted. Board notified." Maya's pulse spiked, her fingers curling into fists. "They know we're here," she whispered, her eyes darting to the door. Footsteps echoed outside, heavy and deliberate. "We move," Maya said, her voice steel, echoing her file room vow. "You're finished." She and Jamal slipped through a side exit, their steps quick, silent, dodging flickering security cameras. Maya's phone buzzed. Ethan Carter, her billionaire husband, texting, "Where are you? Board meeting in 10. Her heart lurched. She hadn't told Ethan about the attack, the evidence, or the conspiracy threatening her life. His CEO badge, still a secret to her, gleamed in her mind's eye, a beacon of hope she didn't yet grasp. They ducked into a stairwell, their breaths ragged, the USB burning a hole in Jamal's pocket. "We need Susan's emails," Maya said, her voice a low growl. "Hard proof she signed off." Jamal nodded, his eyes sharp with adrenaline. "IT storage, old drives. They don't wipe everything." They sprinted to the IT storage room, a cluttered cave of discarded tech. Maya's hands shook as she rifled through boxes, her bruise throbbing, her resolve ironclad. Jamal cracked open a dusty hard drive, plugging it into a spare laptop. "Jackpot," he muttered, pulling up Susan's archived emails, dozens to Richard, detailing fund transfers to offshore accounts. One email stopped Maya cold. "If Jackson digs, frame her. She's expendable." Her chest tightened, rage swallowing fear. "Expendable?" she hissed, her nails biting deeper, her voice trembling with fury. "They mocked me, stole my work, and planned to ruin me." Jamal's hand gripped her shoulder, steadying her. "We've got them," he said, his voice fierce. The emails, paired with the call, were a guillotine for Richard and Susan. Maya copied the files to her phone, her fingers flying, her heart a war drum. The door rattled. Security, closer now. "Go!" Jamal barked, yanking the drive free. They bolted, weaving through corridors, their steps pounding like a chase. Maya's mind raced, Aaliyah's face flashing. Her daughter's future was at stake. She texted Ethan, "Server room, evidence, hurry." The dominoes fell. Richard's attack, the USB's secrets, Susan's betrayal, and now their desperate escape. As they reached the lobby, Maya's eyes caught a figure in the shadows. Ethan, his CEO badge gleaming, his jaw set like a predator. He didn't know the full truth, but his fury matched hers, ready to ignite. Upstairs, Susan Grant sat in the boardroom, her pen tapping nervously, unaware that Maya held the key to her downfall. Ethan's phone buzzed with Maya's text, his fingers tightening, his resolve a coiled spring. "You're finished, Hayes," Ethan Carter's voice thundered, a guillotine slicing through the Sterling Investments boardroom. The billionaire CEO, 45, stood at the head of the mahogany table, his jaw clenched, his tie loose, gripping a laptop loaded with the USB's damning files. Maya Jackson, 42, stood beside him, her burgundy blazer creased from the server room chase, her nails digging into her palms, blood pricking her skin. Jamal Brooks flanked her, his eyes blazing, clutching printed emails exposing Richard Hayes and Susan Grant's $15 million Baxter account theft. The board, 6 executives, including Susan, froze, their faces pale as Ethan's accusation landed like a bomb. Richard Hayes, 55, lurched to his feet, his gray suit rumpled, his shark's grin gone. "You can't prove anything," he roared, his fist slamming the table, sending pens skittering. Susan, 48, her pen tapping nervously, cut in. "This is absurd." Her voice cracked, her eyes darting to Richard. Maya's pulse hammered, her teeth grinding until her temples throbbed. Richard's file room attack, his hand on her wrist, his threats against her daughter Aaliyah, fueled her rage. "We've got proof," she hissed, her voice ablade. "Your emails, your call, your fake accounts." Ethan hit play on the laptop, Susan's recorded voice crackling through. "Reassign Jackson. She's too sharp." Richard's reply followed. "Divert the funds. I'll handle the fallout." The boardroom gasped, chairs creaking as executives shifted, their eyes wide with panic. Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting like steel. "You mocked my weight, called me expendable, and stole millions to cover your gambling debts." Her words echoed her vow. "This firm will choke, now a prophecy fulfilled." Susan's face drained, her pen dropping with a clatter. "That's fabricated," she spat, but her trembling hands betrayed her. Jamal slapped the printed emails onto the table, their pages fanning out like a guillotine's blade. Offshore accounts, forged signatures. "Your orders to frame Maya," he said, his voice a low growl, his knuckles whitening. The board's whispers erupted, a hive of shock and fear. Richard lunged for the emails, but Ethan's hand shot out, blocking him. "Sit," Ethan commanded, his voice ice, his CEO badge gleaming like a verdict. "You targeted my wife to hide your crimes." The room froze at wife. Susan's jaw dropping, her eyes darting between Maya and Ethan. "You're married," Susan stammered, her voice a squeak. Maya's lips curled, a spark of triumph flashing. "You didn't know," she said, her tone lethal. "You mocked me, buried my work, but you didn't break me." The dominoes fell. The USB's files, Susan's emails, and the recorded call from the server room chase exposed their scheme. Ethan's eyes burned, his fists clenching until his knuckles cracked. "You're fired," he said to Richard, his voice a death knell. "You too, Susan. Effective now." Richard's face purpled, his chair toppling as he stood. "You'll regret this," he roared, his finger jabbing at Ethan. "This firm's mine." Ethan's laugh was a cold blade. "Not anymore." He nodded to security at the door, their radios crackling as they moved in. Susan scrambled, her hands snatching papers, but Jamal blocked her, his eyes fierce. "It's over," he said, his voice steady. The board sat stunned, their silence a confession of complicity. Maya's heart pounded, her bruise from Richard's attack throbbing, but her stance was ironclad, her daughter's future secure. As security escorted Richard and Susan out, their shouts fading, Ethan turned to Maya, his hand brushing hers, a silent vow. "You did this," he said, his voice low, proud. Maya's eyes met his, her resolve a wildfire. "We did this," she corrected, her voice steady, echoing her defiance from the start. The boardroom's air shifted, the weight of justice settling. Analysts outside whispered, news of the purge spreading like fire. Upstairs, Victoria Langley watched from her office, her nails biting into her arms, her career teetering as the firm's rot was exposed. Maya clutched the USB, her fingers steady, ready for the next fight. "You're going to jail, Hayes!" Ethan Carter's voice boomed, a gavel slamming in Sterling Investments' boardroom. The billionaire CEO, 45, stood tall, his jaw clenched, his eyes blazing as Richard Hayes, 55, slumped in handcuffs, his gray suit wrinkled, his shark's grin shattered. Maya Jackson, 42, stood beside Ethan, her burgundy blazer a defiant banner, her nails biting into her palms, the sting fueling her triumph. Federal agents flanked Richard, their badges glinting, as Susan Grant, 48, sat frozen, her face ashen, her hands trembling after her own arrest warrant was read. The USB files, emails, and recorded call from the showdown had sealed their fate. Richard's eyes darted, wild, desperate. "This is a setup," he roared, his cuffs rattling as he lunged forward, only to be yanked back by an agent. Maya's pulse hammered, her teeth grinding, the bruise from his file room attack throbbing. "A setup?" she snapped, her voice ablade. "You stole $15 million, framed me, mocked my weight to bury me." Her words cut deep, echoing her vow. "This firm will choke." Susan's head bowed, her pen clattering to the floor. "I didn't know," she stammered, her voice a broken whisper, but Maya's glare silenced her. The boardroom's air crackled, the remaining executives silent, their complicity exposed by the leaked memo. Ethan tossed a report onto the table, its pages fanning out, proof of returned Baxter funds wired back to clients that morning. "The conspiracy ends here," he said, his voice ice, his CEO badge a verdict. The dominoes fell, Richard's embezzlement, Susan's cover-up, and the board's inaction unraveled by Maya's evidence. Analysts outside whispered, news of the arrests spreading like wildfire. Sterling's reputation teetering but salvageable. Maya's chest heaved, her heart a war drum as she faced Richard. "You thought I was expendable," she said, her voice steady, lethal. "Now you're nothing." His face purpled, his shouts muffled as agents dragged him out. Susan followed, her head low, her career ashes. The boardroom emptied, leaving Maya and Ethan, their hands brushing, a silent vow of justice. Her reputation, once tarnished by Victoria's mockery, now shone, her brilliance undeniable, her strength unbreakable. Hook. As the cuffs clicked shut, Victoria Langley lingered outside, her nails digging into her arms, knowing her reckoning loomed as Ethan and Maya planned a bold move to rebuild Sterling's soul. "We failed you, Maya, but we're fixing it." Ethan Carter's voice boomed, a clarion call slicing through the packed Sterling Investments conference room. The billionaire CEO, 45, stood at the podium, his jaw clenched, his tie loose, his eyes blazing with purpose. Maya Jackson, 42, stood beside him, her burgundy blazer a beacon of resilience, her nails digging into her palms, the sting fueling her pride. The room, filled with analysts, board members, and press, buzzed with tension, the fallout of Richard Hayes and Susan Grant's arrests still raw. Victoria Langley, 50, lingered at the back, her blonde hair disheveled, her hands trembling, her career teetering after enabling Sterling's toxic culture. Ethan's fist slammed the podium, silencing the murmurs. Sterling's biases, mocking Maya's weight, sidelining talent. "Ends now," he declared, his voice ablade. Maya's pulse hammered, her teeth grinding as memories of Victoria's boardroom jab, too heavy for Wall Street, ignited her resolve. The arrests had gutted the firm's corrupt core, but Ethan's vision was bolder. Rebuild Sterling as a beacon of merit. He unveiled the Jackson Empowerment Fund, a $50 million initiative for minority women in finance, named for Maya's late mother, a teacher who'd fought for equal education. "This fund isn't charity," Maya said, stepping forward, her voice steel, cutting through the room's hum. "It's justice." Her eyes locked on Victoria, who flinched, her nails biting into her arms, leaving red welts. The fund would offer scholarships, mentorships, and startup grants, leveling the playing field Maya had clawed her way through as a black single mother. Reporters scribbled, cameras flashed, and analysts whispered, their awe palpable. Maya's heart pounded, her bruise from Richard's attack a fading ache, her triumph a wildfire. Victoria pushed through the crowd, her heels unsteady, her voice a strained hiss. "Maya, I was wrong. I want to help." Her words were a jagged olive branch, her face flushed with shame. Maya's jaw tightened, her fingers curling into fists. "Help?" she snapped, her tone lethal. "You mocked me, buried my work. Prove you mean it." The room stilled, eyes darting between them. Victoria's lips trembled, but she nodded, her voice low. "I'll mentor the first cohort. No strings." Maya's eyes narrowed, assessing, then softened slightly. "Earn it," she said, her words a challenge, echoing her vow. "This firm will choke." The dominoes fell. Ethan's fund announcement sparked applause. Maya's defiance silenced doubters, and Victoria's pledge shifted the room's energy. Ethan's hand brushed Maya's, a silent vow of partnership. "We're rewriting Sterling's soul," he said, his voice fierce, his CEO badge gleaming like a promise. He outlined reforms, blind evaluations, diversity quotas, zero tolerance for bias, each policy a brick in a new foundation. Analysts nodded, their skepticism fading, replaced by hope. The press fired questions, their pens racing to capture the moment. Victoria stepped forward, her hands shaking but resolute. "I enabled a toxic culture," she said, her voice cracking, facing the crowd. "I mocked Maya's weight, her worth. I'm changing." Her confession stunned the room, reporters scrambling, cameras zooming. Maya's chest heaved, her resolve ironclad but her heart softening. She saw Victoria's pain, a mirror of her past doubts. "Words aren't enough," Maya said, her voice steady. "Show up for the fun. Show up for change." Victoria nodded, her eyes glistening, her nails no longer biting, but gripping a notebook, ready to work. Outside, Sterling's stock ticker flashed up 5% as news of the reform spread. Clients, once wary after the Baxter scandal, sent emails praising the fund, vowing renewed partnerships. Maya's phone buzzed. Aaliyah's text. "You're my hero, Mom." Her lips curled, a spark of joy cutting through her battle scars. Ethan's arm circled her shoulders, his voice low. "We're building something bigger than us." The room erupted in applause. The weight of justice lifted, replaced by a vision of hope. Upstairs, Jamal Brooks, now promoted to lead analyst, reviewed fund applications, his eyes bright with purpose. Sterling's toxic past was ashes, but its future burned bright, forged by Maya's strength and Ethan's resolve. Hook. As the conference room cheered, Maya found a letter from her late mother in her bag, its words urging her to leave a legacy, setting the stage for a final, transformative stand. Hoi 5, Tai Tiet, and Isan. Yim 15, Ket Tuk Vien Man Imbai, Huck. Mita 500 words. We rose above their hate. Maya Jackson's voice soared, a beacon cutting through the roar of applause at the Jackson Empowerment Fund Gala. The 42-year-old black financial analyst stood radiant in a sapphire gown, her bruise from Richard Hayes' attack a faint shadow, her nails no longer biting into her palms but gripping a microphone with fierce pride. Beside her, Ethan Carter, her 45-year-old billionaire husband, his CEO badge gleaming, squeezed her hand, his jaw clenched with quiet awe. The New York ballroom buzzed, hundreds of financiers, minority scholars, and reporters celebrating Sterling Investments' rebirth. Maya's heart pounded, her teeth no longer grinding, but her resolve a wildfire. Forged from Victoria Langley's mockery, too heavy for Wall Street, and a fight that toppled a corrupt empire. The gala, hosted in a sleek Manhattan venue, marked the fund's launch. $50 million for minority women in finance, named for Maya's late mother, whose letter had urged her to leave a mark that outlives you. Maya's eyes glistened, her voice steady. They mocked my weight, my blackness, tried to bury my worth, she said, her words a blade slicing through the crowd's hum. But we built something stronger, opportunity, not obstacles. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled, and scholars, young women like Maya's daughter, Aaliyah, cheered, their faces alight with hope. Ethan stepped forward, his voice a low thunder. Sterling was rotten. Bias, theft, lies, he said, his fists clenching, knuckles whitening. We purged it. Richard Hayes and Susan Grant are in cuffs. This fund is our vow. Talent wins, not prejudice. The crowd roared, their applause a tidal wave. The arrests had shaken Wall Street, with Richard facing 20 years for embezzling $15 million, and Susan charged as an accomplice. Sterling stock had dipped, then surged 10% as clients embraced Ethan's reforms. Blind evaluations, diversity quotas, zero tolerance for bias. Victoria Langley, her blonde hair loose, stood at the gala's edge, her hands trembling but clutching a mentor's badge. Her confession at the press conference admitting her role in Maya's humiliation had cost her clout but earned her a second chance. I was wrong, she said, stepping to the podium, her voice cracking. I mocked Maya, enabled a toxic system. Now I mentor these women to atone. Her eyes met Maya's, no longer venomous but raw, vulnerable. Maya nodded, her lips curling slightly. Keep showing up, she said, her tone firm but forgiving, a bridge built from her strength. The dominoes fell. The fund's launch, Victoria's redemption, and Sterling's transformation tied every thread. Richard's threats, Susan's betrayal, the audit watchdog clues, into a tapestry of justice. Jamal Brooks, now Sterling's lead analyst, approached, his grin wide. You changed the game, he said, his hand gripping Maya's shoulder. His promotion, alongside other sideline minorities, marked Sterling's new era. Aaliyah, 16, rushed to Maya, her braids swinging. Mom, you're a legend, she said, her hug fierce. Maya's chest heaved, her heart a war drum now beating with joy, not rage. Ethan raised a glass, his voice warm. To Maya, who turned pain into power. The crowd toasted, their glasses clinking like a symphony. Maya's eyes locked with his, their bond a steel thread through every battle. She thought of her mother's letter, its words etched in her soul. Fight for those who can't. The fund was her legacy, a promise to Aaliyah and countless others that worth isn't measured by appearance but by impact. Reporters swarmed, one asking, Ms. Jackson, what's next? Maya's lips curled, her voice a vow. More doors opened, more biases crushed. Across the city, Sterling's offices hummed with new hires, diverse, hungry, untamed by old prejudices. Victoria mentored a young black scholar, her hands steady, her past a lesson. Jamal led a high-stakes client pitch, his confidence unshackled. The Baxter account, once a scandal, now funds community programs, its millions restored. Sterling's reputation, once ashes, now gleamed, a beacon for ethical finance. Maya and Ethan stepped onto the ballroom's balcony, Manhattan's skyline glittering below. We did it, Ethan said, his arms circling her, his voice thick with pride. Maya leaned into him, her fingers brushing his, her bruise a distant memory. No, she said, her voice soft but fierce. We're just starting. Aaliyah joined them, her science fair medal glinting, her future boundless. This story of Maya Jackson shows that true worth lies in courage and impact, not appearance. Her fight against prejudice and corruption proves that justice triumphs when we rise above hate. What did you think of Maya's journey? Have you faced similar battles? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story. Stay strong